What's up, everyone, and welcome to English Like a Boss. If you would like to improve your pronunciation, you're lucky because I am an accent coach and I can help you sound a little bit more like a native speaker. If you are a Spanish speaker, turn on the Spanish captions, and if you speak English and still want to see the English captions, turn them on. Now, let's get started. If you watched my previous video, you know that today I will talk about something similar, and that is what happens to American pronunciation in an everyday speech. I would like to talk about two things today. The first one is assimilation, and the second one is a glottal stop. The first one, assimilation, is something that happens when a certain sound becomes similar to the previous sound. It is something optional. It is not something that you have to do in order to sound correct. It is already correct the way you probably say it. But what I am trying to say is that if I say, for example, because you, in a fast speech or in an everyday speech, you may say because you. What I want to say is that the final z in because becomes j. So instead of because you're saying because you. There is the j sound. It is called assimilation because the last sound z became j, because it is trying to assimilate to the previous sound. And in the end, it is actually more convenient to pronounce it like that. It is actually easier for the tongue to pronounce it as j instead of z. Let me say another example. When I say knows you, you may say knows you instead of knows you. The z becomes j again. Since you may become since you. Here, the final s, since becomes sh, since you. You may have already noticed that this follows a certain pattern. It actually happens with words that begin with y and are preceded with s or z, okay? Another example can be this year. Many speakers say this year. So if I say this assimilation in a sentence, I may say, there are a lot of apples in this yard. In this yard became in this yard. This yard is this yard. However, there are also other words. For example, stretch. Now you may think, oh, what is that? But if you say stretch in a fast speech, you may say stretch. It sort of sounds as if the s at the beginning became sh. So stretch. And this actually happens because the following consonants are t and r, and sh is actually closer to t and r. That is why it's easier to say stretch. Another example can be street. You may say street. Or if I say stripe, it may be stripe. The second thing I want to talk about is the glottal stop. It is a quite frequent thing. So what is exactly this glottal stop? It is actually obstructing airflow through your vocal tract. So let me show it to you in this example. When I say getting, getting, I may say get in, get in. It is something that is also widely used by the British speakers in words such as better. They say better. There is the sound. That is exactly the glottal stop. And now let me give you some words where you can actually use the glottal stop. Kitten. You're not saying kitten, you're saying kitten, or forgotten, or gotten. And also in the word sentence, you may just say sentence, sentence. You probably noticed that the glottal stop is used instead of the t phoneme. Obviously, it cannot be used for every t phoneme. If I say take, or tip, or tweet, obviously, I cannot say the glottal stop. That would sound totally ridiculous. It would sound like ache, which makes no sense. It has to be take. There's a lot of way how to pronounce the t phoneme. You can replace it with other sounds, obviously, and I will actually talk about that in my next video. I will talk about other ways how to replace the T phoneme. By the way, if you want to sound like a native speaker, check out the description box below where you can find my phonetic guide where I explain in 4 steps how to improve your pronunciation.